Hey everyone, before I start, I just want to say that this is my first Iceberg video. I know these have been done to death, but with how much I've enjoyed watching other people's Iceberg videos, I really wanted to take a swing at it. I also tried to use a version of the iceberg that hasn't been covered by any other YouTuber to my knowledge. In case you aren't sure what an iceberg is, it's a picture with mysteries/conspiracies on it, and they're organized into layers, with each layer going deeper underwater on the iceberg. The lower the layer on the iceberg, the more obscure or unknown the subject is. So, let's take a look at the Super Mario 64 iceberg. This iceberg was originally posted to Reddit by the user Yoshi Skull, starting in the clear skies with 120 stars. I think that this just refers to the total number of stars in the game. I tried to look further into it to see if there was any other answer, but the closest thing I could find was some people claiming that there are more than 120 stars in Mario 64. I, however, am not too sure why this is on the list. ROM hacks. There are many ROM hacks of Mario 64. Just search up Super Mario 64 ROM hack on YouTube, and you're bound to find plenty of footage showcasing this fact. Backwards long jump. Everybody probably knows what this is by now, but to put it simply, players use the backwards long jump to glitch the game and get to areas that should be inaccessible to them. One of the most famous examples of this is on the Endless Staircase. You only need 50 stars to access this area. However, the stairs will continuously loop and not let the player pass unless they have 70 power stars. However, if the player performs the backwards long jump, Mario can shoot up the stairs, gaining the player access to the final stage before they're supposed to get there. The backwards long jump has been patched out of the game in newer releases. The Aquarium. I believe this refers to the secret level you can access in the room where the Jolly Roger Bay painting is. You can jump into one of the dark squares on the wall to access it. When you enter the level, you're in a giant aquarium with multicolored windows that appears to be floating in the sky. Nobody's quite sure where this aquarium is located in Mario's world, and it's a very weird level. Similar speculation has been made about the towers in the secret stage where Mario unlocks the wing cap. Yoshi on the roof. I'm not too sure why this is on the iceberg, as it's pretty well known that Yoshi will appear on the castle's roof once the player collects all 120 power stars in the game. If you make your way up to the roof after collecting all 120 power stars, all Yoshi does is restore Mario's health and give him 100 lives before jumping off the roof of the castle. Since I don't have much to say about this, let's move on. So long, gay Bowser. This has been a meme for a while now, and my friends and I would even joke about it when we were kids. During the Bowser fight, when Mario throws Bowser, he yells what sounds like, "So long, gay Bowser." According to Mario's voice actor, Charles Martinet, he said "So long, King Bowser." I'm not one to doubt Charles, as he himself recorded the line, but just take a listen for yourself next time you play and see what you hear. The line was completely removed from later releases, with Mario saying "bye bye" or "here we go." Lakitu's bad camera job. If I had to guess, I think this refers to how the camera in Mario 64 wasn't always the best. Sometimes it would swing around randomly, or sometimes it would just be unresponsive. Since Mario 64 is one of the first 3D video games, Nintendo decided to characterize the camera by making Lakitu the cameraman. So this theory is saying that Lakitu is bad at his job of being a cameraman. This could also be talking about how Lakitu shouldn't be able to follow Mario into certain areas, like underwater or small cramped areas. The Endless Staircase. I've already mentioned the Endless Staircase when I talked about the backwards long jump. As I said earlier, it's the staircase that leads to the final Bowser stage, and will loop continuously unless the player has 70 more power stars. Enough said, let's move on to the next one. To finish off the top layer, we have painting dimensions. I'm pretty sure this theory on the iceberg is talking about whether the paintings are sending Mario to real places, or if the paintings are taking Mario into a different dimension. I personally believe Mario is not going to different dimensions, mainly because of a single level in Super Mario Galaxy 2. At one point in Super Mario Galaxy 2, Mario actually goes to Whomp's Fortress, which pretty much proves to me that the paintings are taking Mario to real locations within his world, not different dimensions. Moving down from the clear skies, now we're at the tip of the iceberg. Most of this stuff is still going to be fairly well known, but not as well known as the stuff on the previous layer. To start things off, we have Whomp's Fortress hidden 1-up. This is one of the most hidden and just weird 1-up mushrooms you can obtain in the game. To get it, you have to go to the tower located at the top of the level, Whomp's Fortress, and punch this specific part of the wall. The wall will shatter and reveal a 1-up mushroom just kinda sitting inside a small secret room. I actually found this one when I was a kid, just because I spent many hours playing Mario 64. I remember even back then I thought it was kind of pointless, but now I also think it's kind of cool how many secrets Nintendo put in this game. Got Milk commercial. I've heard some people say that in the Got Milk commercial, Mario doesn't have enough stars to be in Wet Dry World. However, Mario has 37 stars. You only need 31 stars to get upstairs where Wet Dry World is located. So this is just untrue. Super Mario 64 Shindo version. The Shindo version of Super Mario 64 was released around a year after the initial release of Super Mario 64. It's an updated version of the game that had some minor changes, such as rumble support being added and adding this Easter egg on the title screen. However, what this Shindo version is most famous for, or rather infamous for, is the removal of the backwards long jump. This has decreased its popularity with the speedrunning community, who rely heavily on using backwards long jump glitch to perform certain styles of the speedrun. This version of the game is also what we got in Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Nintendo Switch. L is Real 2401. If you grew up with this game in the late 90s to early 2000s, you probably heard about this a million times. People theorized that the plaque on the star statue in the castle's backyard said L is Real 2401. So people interpreted that to mean that Luigi was secretly in the game, and to get him, you had to beat the game and collect exactly 2,401 coins throughout your playthrough. Or some people said that you had to run around the star statue 2,401 times. Now, I've tried almost every single method I saw when I was a kid, and I can say none of them work. Interestingly enough though, you can find the same plaque in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which may point to the fact that the plaque said nothing, and was just an asset Nintendo used in multiple games. The last thing I want to talk about on this subject is the 2020 2401 leak. 22 years in 1 month, hence 2401, after the game's initial release, a massive leak of Super Mario 64 unused assets was leaked to the internet. Within these unused assets was a player model of Luigi, meaning that L was real the whole time. If you want more details on the 2401 leak, YouTuber SwankyBox has a really good video on the subject matter you should check out. Fake windows. I believe that this is referring to the windows on the front of the castle that are not visible anywhere inside the castle. This has led many players to think that the windows are fake, or that are inaccessible locations in the castle where you can see the windows. I don't have anything else to say on this, so let's move on to the final thing on this layer of the iceberg. Super Mario 64 PC port. This is referring to a port of Super Mario 64 for Windows released back in 2020. The port was made possible with leaks and decompiled codes of Mario 64. Not much to say about this, so let's move on to the next layer. We are now below the water, starting with faces in the Bob-omb Battlefield dirt texture. Some people claim to see a face in this dirt texture and claim that it's haunted. I can kinda see it, but honestly, I think it's just a case of seeing shapes or patterns where there are none, sort of like star constellations. This one doesn't give me much else to talk about, so let's move on. Tick-tock clock time anomalies. This refers to how where depending on where the clock hands are pointing on tick-tock clock, the level will act differently. When Mario enters when both hands are on 12 to 2, none of the mechanisms inside the clock will move. If the hands are on 3 to 5, the mechanisms will move slowly, and entering at 9 to 11 will cause the clock's mechanisms to move swiftly. The most interesting one to me is if Mario enters the clock at 6 o'clock, the inner mechanisms of the clock will go crazy, appearing to have no pattern to their movement. It's a really interesting mechanic that Nintendo added to the game, and just shows how much detail they put into their games. Blarg. Blarg was an enemy initially introduced in Super Mario World. He resides in lava levels, and when Mario gets close, he will lunge up out of the lava in an attempt to attack Mario. Blarg was initially planned to show up in Super Mario 64 in the level Lethal Lava Land. However, he was scrapped for some reason. Some people going through the code of Super Mario 64 were able to find an unfinished model for Blarg, and were even able to hack him back into the game. However, since his implementation was never finished by Nintendo, he won't do anything in the level except bob up and down in the lava. Lakitu skip. This is referring to the fact that at the beginning of the game, while walking up to the castle for the first time, it's possible to skip Lakitu's message. Just get as close to the edge of the bridge as possible, and crawl in order not to fall off the edge. Boom, you just performed the Lakitu skip. This technique is commonly used by speedrunners of Super Mario 64, as it can shave seconds off of your speedrun. Super Mario 64 Beta Archives. Super Mario 64 Beta Archives was a YouTube channel featuring alleged beta footage of Super Mario 64, posting videos about theorized content like the anti-piracy screen, beta soundtracks, and they even posted a video of the alleged 1995 build. Even though the channel has amassed over 50,000 subscribers and over 5 million views, as of this time they haven't posted since January 12, 2021. This seems to be due to inner controversy within the team behind the videos. That pretty much sums it up, so let's move on. Last copy sold. I couldn't find much on this, but to quote Yoshi Skull, the original poster of the Iceberg, he says that it's something that connects to the every copy of Mario 64's personalized theory. It's basically saying that the last copy sold could have been very special / significant, in response to another Redditor questioning him on the subject. As I said, I couldn't really find anything else on this, so I have to move on to the next subject, and subsequently the next layer of the iceberg. Arriving at the middle of the iceberg, we have Space World 1995. Space World was an event Nintendo used to hold annually from the years 1989 to 2001. In November of 1995, the Nintendo 64 was publicly shown, and at this event, there was an early version of Super Mario 64 available for play. Goddard. Goddard is referring to Giles Goddard, a programmer for Nintendo who worked with Nintendo during the SNES and N64 era. He was part of the development team for Super Mario 64, and to quote him, "I basically just did the Mario face. It was supposed to be like something was loading. Even though it wasn't on CD, there was still lots of stuff going on in the background sorting itself out. Not much else I could find on this one. Moving on. The 121st Star. The 121st Star is an inaccessible star in the level Cool Cool Mountain. YouTuber SwankyBox has a couple of cool videos on this if you want a more deep dive on this subject. Project Power 1995. Project Power 1995 is the name of a Mario 64 beta revival by Shadow Mario Modder. The only info I could find on this was on the website archive.com, although there is footage of the ROM hack that can be easily found on YouTube. Typo in Yoshi's message. Now we have one that I actually noticed when I was a kid. When you collect all 120 stars and go up onto the castle's roof and talk to Yoshi, Yoshi will say, "Mario, it that really you? It has been so long since our last adventure." It's pretty easy to miss, especially if you're just quickly skimming over the message, but a closer look will reveal that Yoshi says "it that you" instead of "is that you." It's just a small typo, but it's funny to see even big companies like Nintendo making small mistakes like this. Going deeper into the iceberg, Yoshi commits suicide. Now, I honestly think that this is just a joke within the Mario 64 community. This joke stems from the fact that after you talk to Yoshi on the castle roof, he jumps off the side of the castle and disappears, so many people say that he is committing suicide. Bowser broke the castle courtyard door. This theory was created due to the odd appearance of the castle's back door. It has this cheap looking brick part that looks like it was put there as a temporary fix. As the theory goes, Bowser broke through the door and had his minions put up the bricks as a quick patch over. Super Mario 128. Super Mario 128 was first used by Miyamoto for a possible name for the sequel of Mario 64. The name Super Mario 128 was later used for a tech demo during the 2000 Space World event to show the capabilities of the Nintendo GameCube. The demo showed many Marios running around on a big disc. The disc then becomes a pizza, which becomes conical, causing all the Marios to fall off the pizza into the abyss. Miyamoto later revealed that the mechanics used for the tech demo would later be used to make a new game, Pikmin. Wario Apparition. This one is probably one of the main things that brought all the icebergs and theories into relevance. The Wario Apparition is said to appear in personalized copies of Mario 64 when in the hallway that leads to Dire Dire Docks. When there, a floating Wario head supposedly appears and says, "You think this is fun? Wario show you fun!" Wario's floating head will then start moving towards the player while the Endless Staircase theme plays. Many players have reported having nightmares of the Wario Apparition, and stroke-like symptoms along with memory loss after their encounter with him. The source of the Wario head has actually been traced back to a booth Nintendo set up at E3 1996 called Focused on Fun. However, some players still swear that they have seen the Wario Apparition, and there are supposedly real videos on YouTube showcasing the phenomenon. Peach is trapped behind the stained glass painting. This theory suggests that Peach is trapped in the stained window in the front of the castle. This does make sense, as when you enter the castle, you can see the window from the inside too. However, the windows aren't exactly the same, and there's a short hallway between the two windows. This leads me to believe that there's a room up there. This theory is further solidified by the fact that when you beat the game, Peach appears right in front of the stained window before floating down to the ground. Beta Bob-ombs. If I had to guess, I would say that this is in reference to the Bob-ombs seen in this strange image. The Bob-ombs look significantly different, with their feet being gray instead of yellow, and their fuse being yellow instead of gray. For some reason, they appear on a strange and desolate island, with a few trees and a strange man wearing a sombrero. Koopa the Quick's new shoes. In the English, German, Italian, and Spanish versions of the game, when the player rematches Koopa the Quick in the level Tiny Huge Island, he mentions that the secret to his newfound speed is his new shoes. The shoes are called the Koopa Mach 1 Sprints, which he claims to have spent his entire savings on. I have heard rumors that Mario is somehow supposed to be able to get a pair of these shoes for himself, giving him super speed. But after looking around online, I couldn't find a single mention of how to get them, other than mods. Moving deeper down, we have Gay Baby Jail. This is a term created by YouTuber and streamer Simple Flips. The term first appeared in his video called Super Mario XD. In this video, he gets trapped within a cage, and a commenter called it Gay Baby Jail. Now the term Gay Baby Jail is used to describe any sort of soft lock within Mario 64, such as being trapped in an area that you can't get out of, or kill Mario to exit the level, leaving the only option of escape being resetting the game. Wet Dry World Negative Emotional Aura. This is one that I can personally attest to. When I was younger, I would always try to avoid Wet Dry World just because it always creeped me out. The eerie music, the weird skybox, the underwater abandoned town, and just a distant feeling of loneliness. And I'm far from alone in feeling like this. Many players feel the same exact way, hence why it's on the iceberg. The whole vibe of the level is just off, and despite the feeling of loneliness, I can't help but feel that the real reason I feel uncomfortable is that I truly don't feel alone in this level. There's eerie buildings in the skybox of the level, and a town underneath the level, implying that other people should be here, yet the level is devoid of life besides a few skeeters around the level. The other enemies are robotic, such as Heave Hose and the Chuckya at the top of the level. The town underneath the level is built in such a weird spot, with no exit back out once you get down there. This might imply something far more sinister than what meets the eye, but I'm probably just reading way too much into it. It's a weird level for a Mario game, enough said. King Whomp is used to build the fortress. In the first star for the level Whomp's Fortress, Chip off Whomp's block, you must fight the King Whomp. When you first meet him, he says, "It makes me so mad. We build your houses, your castles, we pave your roads, and you still walk all over us. Do you ever say thank you? No. Well, you're not gonna wipe your feet on me. I think I'll just crush you for fun. Do you have a problem with that? Just try to pound me, wimp. Ha." The battle then ensues. After beating him, he then says, "No, crushed again. I'm just a stepping stone after all. I won't grovel. Here, you win. Take this with you." Before exploding and giving Mario Power Star. When the player returns to Whomp's Fortress after beating the Whomp King, there's a tall tower standing where he once stood. Considering King Whomp said that the Whomps were used to build houses and castles, it's pretty heavily implied that King Whomp was used as building materials for the tower, falling victim to the very thing he complained about. Mips. Mips is Princess Peach's pet rabbit that can be found in the basement of the castle after Mario's obtained 15 Power Stars, and once again after he's obtained 50 Power Stars. Mips' name is an acronym standing for Microprocessor Without Interlocked Pipeline Stages, based off the CPU that powers the Nintendo 64. Mips runs away from Mario if you get too close, and will give you a star if you manage to catch him. He was one of the first characters made for Mario 64. Although initially he was only meant to be used for testing purposes, the team liked Mips so much that he ended up being in the final game. During the beta stage of the game, Mario could apparently throw Mips by the ears, which ended up being removed from the game for obvious reasons. Many speedrunners utilize a glitch that uses Mips to glitch through the second Bowser door in a 16-star speedrun. Luigi found in the files 24 years and 1 month later. I already kinda talked about this one in the second layer of the iceberg. Again, if you want a more in-depth explanation of this event, check out Swankybox's video. Co-op. During the development of Super Mario 64, Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to have a co-op mode in the game, where one player played as Mario, and the other player would play as Luigi. However, they couldn't find a good way to implement this idea, and it was ultimately scrapped, taking Luigi out of the game along with co-op mode. Who is recording Lakitu? In the beginning cutscene of the game, we get a cool shot of Lakitu flying underneath the castle bridge over to where Mario will jump out of a pipe so we can begin to film Mario's adventure to save Peach. However, this brings up a question. If Lakitu is the cameraman for the game, then who was filming Lakitu in the beginning cutscene? Honestly, I think this is just people overthinking the situation. After all, it's just a video game. Not everything has to make sense, but it's fun to think about. Every copy of Mario 64 is personalized. When talking with other people about Super Mario 64, you may have different memories than them, and you may realize that certain things you swore happened when you were playing as a kid didn't seem to actually be present in the game. There is one instance of this actually happening to me. I remember when I went down to the merry-go-round in Big Boo's mansion. I remember when I went down to the merry-go-round for the first time and I approached the door to enter, I heard Big Boo laugh, and a text box appearing saying something along the lines of, "Round and round the merry-go-round. You jump up and ground pound down. When you see me you will frown, come inside my merry-go-round." Those weren't the exact words, I can't remember since it was so long ago, but this doesn't actually happen in the game. Other players have also claimed to see stuff like the Wario apparition. I've even seen some people claim they remember whole areas and levels in the games, such as in Cool Cool Mountain. There's a sign that reads, "Warning, cold cold crevice below." Some players recall that if you jump off the bridge next to the sign, Mario will be taken to a canyon-like part of the level called Cool Cool Crevice. There are plenty more instances of people remembering stuff like this, and stuff like this has led people to believe that every copy of Mario 64 is personalized. The theory goes that Mario 64 actually has an embedded AI within its programming. This AI supposedly studies how you play, and will change how the game functions based on the way you play. This is supposedly why some people say that playing another person's copy of Mario 64 just doesn't feel right, as the AI adapted differently to the owner of the game. All we have are memories, and despite nothing ever being found within the code to prove this theory, I can't help but wonder if it's true. At the same time though, most of us were kids when we first played Super Mario 64, and kids have crazy imaginations, so it's more likely that most of these occurrences and feelings were just imagined. Who's to say? Rideable Yoshi. Some people recall being able to ride Yoshi after meeting him on the castle's roof. This supposedly ties into the every copy of Mario 64 is personalized theory, so I'll leave it at that. The Dud. After Mario defeats King Bob-omb and returns to Bob-omb Battlefield, when you talk to one of the Bob-omb buddies, he will now say, "Thank you Mario, the big Bob-omb is nothing but a big dud now," in reference to Mario's victory over King Bob-omb. Now when you go over to the base of the mountain, where there were only 2 balls rolling in a pit, there will be a third one. This has led many players to believe that the extra rolling ball is King Bob-omb's corpse. Warner Bros. Sounds in beta. During the development of Mario 64, before they had implemented Charles Martinet's voice acting into the game, Mario sounded a bit different. As a placeholder, Nintendo used voice clips from the Warner Bros. Sound library. That's all there is to say on this. Moving on. The Bowser Room. The Bowser Room is supposedly a hidden area within Princess Peach's castle. The room is gray and has a window with Bowser glaring down at Mario. Apparently the room can be different for different people, as can the way you gain access to it. Some players say that this room was going to be used in the unused bad ending of the game. However, the Bowser Room has been debunked on the YouTube channel Oni Plays. During a Crash Bandicoot playthrough, Chris O'Neill explains that the original Bowser Room image was created by him when he was a child. However, some players still swear they've been there before. Rare Big Boo laugh in Big Boo's haunt. This one's pretty simple. In Big Boo's haunt, you can occasionally hear Boos laughing in the background. Occasionally though, you'll hear a deeper version of the laugh, which some say is Big Boo's laugh. Bob-omb Cannonball Sacrifice. I couldn't find anything about this on the internet, but my best guess has to do with the cannonballs that roll around the mountain in Bob-omb Battlefield and Tiny Huge Island. I think it's connected to the Big Dud theory. The balls that roll down the mountain look exactly like King Bob-omb's body, so maybe the other balls are other Big Bob-ombs who sacrifice themselves? I'm not sure, so moving on. The true meaning of fun. This questions what the Wario apparition means when he says that he will show you fun. I guess the only way to find out would be to encounter the Wario apparition for yourself. Wet Dry World buildings in Ocarina of Time. If you look at some of the buildings in the beta of Ocarina of Time, they look remarkably similar to the buildings found in Wet Dry World. You can also see that the doors on the Wet Dry World buildings look extremely similar to the doors you can find in Ocarina of Time. Wet Dry World Brain Diagram. The level Wet Dry World is said to be in the shape of a human brain, and apparently even functions like one. Others say that there's a picture of a brain diagram hidden within the level's coding. This theory is connected with every copy of Mario 64's personalized theory, because it is said that Wet Dry World is where the AI to personalize the game is stored. Omen.rar. This refers to the Omen archive leak, which led people to be able to emulate N64 games early on. Apparently, the leak was done by a former Silicon Graphics employee when Silicon Graphics was in the process of shutting down. The use of the Omen archives is illegal, so search at your own risk. The Castle Plexus. The interior of Peach's castle is way too big to be contained within the castle that you see from the outside. This also ties in with the fake windows theory I talked about earlier, because if the windows are in rooms that you can't access, then that means that the inside of the castle is even bigger than what we see, and the outside of the castle would definitely not be able to contain it. Nintendo stole Super Mario 64. Supposedly, in the year 1995, the game company Argonaut pitched a 3D platformer game to Nintendo. They had used Yoshi as the main character in the prototype, and Jez San, the founder of Argonaut, claims it was essentially the world's first 3D platform game, and was obviously a big risk. Nintendo had never let an outside company use their characters before, and weren't about to either. This is the moment that the deal fell apart. Jez says that the prototype was very similar to what Mario 64 ended up being, and he feels that Shigeru Miyamoto stole ideas from their prototype to make Super Mario 64. Personally though, I think that this is kind of BS. The video game industry was already moving towards 3D games at that point, and it was only a matter of time before Nintendo made a 3D Mario game. Argonaut went on to turn their game into Croc, Legend of the Gobos, and was released around a year after Nintendo released Super Mario 64, showing that Nintendo probably already had been working on Mario 64 when Argonaut showed them the prototype. Dire Doc's Whirlpool affects Bowser throws. Supposedly, the direction the whirlpool spins in makes it easier to throw Bowser that way. Not much else I could find on this, moving on. Toads literally trapped in the walls. Some players believe that toads are actually trapped within the walls, and the toads you see in the castle are just projections of the toads within the walls. This links back to the Peach is trapped in the stained glass window theory. So, moving on. The third power block switch. I think this one is meant to say the fourth power block switch, since there are already 3 switches in the game. The fourth switch was rumored to activate the Koopa shell blocks. Bowser uses Wiggler parts. During your battle with Bowser, you may notice that the yellow balls surrounding the stage underneath the bombs look familiar. They look really similar to parts of Wiggler's body, leading some players to believe that Bowser uses dead Wiggler body parts to hold his bombs. Hazy Maze Cave is the castle's septic system. So, I'm just going to put this picture up for a bit, and if you really want to read it, you can pause the video, but I really don't want to talk about it, so moving on. 1995 build. This refers to the build of the game shown at Space World 1995. Many players say that this build is haunted and that you should never play it or look into it, but you can do whatever you want. So, if you want to look into it, go ahead. Scrapped levels. Super Mario 64 was originally going to have many more levels, but due to storage limitations, they had to cut some of them out. Not really much else to say on this, so moving on. To start off this layer, I have to say, I wasn't able to find information on some of these subjects, so I'm going to skip over about 3 of the subjects on the list. But first up, we have Chain Chomp's Leap of Disappearance. When completing the 6th star of Bob-omb Battlefield, behind Chain Chomp's gate, something peculiar happens. To get the star, you must ground pound the post Chain Chomp is tied to. This sets him free, and he bounces around and jumps behind the wall over the White Hill thing, breaking the gate containing the star in the process. This seems fine at first, but if you go over to where he jumped, he isn't there. In fact, Chain Chomp seems to have disappeared into thin air. Delicious Cake. Delicious Cake is a level that apparently was supposed to appear in Mario 64, and has also been seen in personalized copies of the game. This level is made up of a huge cake with a star on top of it. If the player collects the star, the game will supposedly instantaneously crash. Shared nightmares. Plenty of players have reported having nightmares about Super Mario 64, whether it's a nightmare of Mario drowning in Wet Dry World, of Nightmare of Bowser or anything else, the nightmares reported usually seem to be pretty similar. The 5th floor. Supposedly, the 5th floor can only be accessed if you defeat the Wario apparition, and there are supposedly 4 different levels on this floor, but I couldn't find much else on this subject, so let's move on. The basement labyrinth of the 1995 build. Supposedly, in the 1995 build of Super Mario 64, there was a large labyrinth underneath the castle. There's not really much else I can say on this, so let's move on. Tiny Huge Island bipolar disorder. Supposedly, some players believe that Tiny Huge Island represents bipolar disorder, with Mario being able to change from big to small within seconds. I'd hate to say this again, but again I can't really find much on this, so let's move on. Endless Staircase theme 1.5 speed reversed. Do not listen. Don't listen to it. Alright, that brings us to the end of this iceberg. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I was kinda nervous to make this and post this, since it was the first video of this length that I've ever made. I do have other icebergs and other videos planned for the future, so if you're interested, please subscribe. Anyways, this has been Astral Antonio. If you think there's anything I can improve on, or if you have an idea for a video, let me know in the comments. Hope to see you next time. Stay tuned. Thanks.